never work out what we're going to say.
Okay, no, we know.
Okay, we know.
Hi everyone, welcome to Spiritual Waffle. I am Sarah.
And I am Jess. And today we're going to be talking about Qigong.
Mm.
So, actually, first,
Oh yeah,
every time, forget every time. Have you done anything recently?
so many.
Okay, great. Well, can you give us one example?
Struggle for me. Okay, first of all, I was influenced by our own podcast.
Oh my God.
I know, shocking,
Full
right?
circle moment.
I mean, we may end up being the only listeners. So, I mean, we can basically count that as a success, right? And I've been going to your yoga classes, which I cannot recommend enough. They are amazing and also hard, but also make me like just buzz afterwards. So well done, Jessica.
Thank you.
And also we should give a shout out to Louise Karen Harris for Solstice Medicine Dance, because that
she did
was
TP last week.
Amazing.
Yeah,
absolutely amazing. Glorious day for it and evening, and it was really good. But you weren't there, so it was.
I know.
It could have been better. I wore black in the morning. And then, yeah, obviously, I then did a solstice retreat on Saturday, which was with some really beautiful humans. Very grateful for all of them joining us. So, yeah, it was a very wholesome, high spiritual weekend.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't go to any of those events, sadly, but I did. I was away a couple of weeks ago in Greece, and I swam every day in the sea, and then I got back and I was like, oh, so annoyed that we live so far away from the ocean. So I was like, I'm just gonna have a look at a wild swimming spot. So I researched it like a year ago, and I only found like a few that it's just not really my vibe. Anyway, I found a new one. It's only been open in February. Okay, it's far away. It's in next to Silverstone.
Okay.
It's like Bicester
Yeah.
way. It's called Flow Wellbeing. They've got 4 or 5 wood-fired hot tubs. Super quiet unless the track is open, in which case you can hear cars. But I haven't heard cars yet. It's got 2 wood-fired saunas, and then it's got a big swimming lake. And it's just done so well, and the people are so lovely there. And all you have to do is attach a tow float to yourself, and that's it. I find wild swimming just gets like diluted for me if I have to have a swimming cap, gloves, shoes, tow float, fluorescent swimsuit. I'm like, this doesn't feel like wild swimming. This feels like
organized fun.
Organized fun in a place. You can't call it wild swimming to me. No. There's nothing wild about it. It's just, I don't know. Yeah, it's organized. But this, just a tow float, and then you just go and you have an hour. It was 10 quid just for a swim for an hour.
Really?
And it was so peaceful. I mean, it helped that it was a gorgeous day and it was really, really sunny. But then you like have an hour swim, and then you can go and grab a coffee from reception, and it's just, yeah, 10 out of 10 recommended. And they have a big jetty in the middle, like a floating platform, and I sat on it and just did like a little morning meditation as the sun was coming up. There was only like 7 other people there. So yeah, would recommend.
Absolutely.
Wild swimming, Flow.
And if you're listening, Flow, discounts appreciated.
Discounts always appreciated.
For a tenner.
Yeah, I know. Honest. What's the discount going to be?
Exactly.
Fine.
Don't discount.
It's already you're already cheap. You're already doing well.
Oh,
so should we dive in?
Diving. Let's.
Great.
Loving the puns.
So you're welcome. So what is it? What is Qigong?
Qigong.
What about?
Qigong. What is it? What is it? Qigong is essentially, I guess you would describe it as the path to cultivating qi. To basically, the word qi in Chinese means energy, life force energy. The word gong means work. So it would be translated as energy work or energy exercises. And we know that everything is made up of energy, nature and universal energy and earth energy and obviously our bodies. And this energy travels through the bodies through the meridians, which are like pathways or like waterways that travel through the body. And if they get blocked or stuck, then the qi, water, will become stagnant. And this creates disease in the body, which then manifests as physical illness, injury, or mental disorder. So really the practice of Qigong is to open, clear and balance these meridians so that the body can restore itself to balance and essentially self-heal. The Chinese would say that the mind is the intention of qi, or qi flows the intention. I mean, I've got such like perimenopausal brain. They say some really good shit that makes a load of sense, but basically intention is key. Wherever the mind goes, the energy flows. So you want to cultivate a balance between concentration and relaxation. The more relaxed you can be with the movements, the more you optimize the qi flow. So in Qigong, we actually only ever use 70% of your maximum range of motion. So nothing should ever hurt. You don't push anything, you don't lock anything, you don't overstretch. You're just gently opening up these meridian points to allow the effective flow of the energy. And when you do that, the body kind of restores itself back to harmony. I mean, to put it into context, there are chi masters that don't move their body at all. They just guide the chi with their mind. But we use the movements to focus the mind so that we can marry the mind, body, and spirit together in order to guide the chi. Qigong uses movement, meditation, breath work, sound, visualization, and tapping and self massage. And everybody has access to this chi. We're born with a direct link to the infinite source of chi all around us. It's just that sometimes we lose that connection. So the practice really reconnects us with that. And essentially, it's a practice of awareness, I would say.
So where did it come from? How long has it been kicking around for? I don't know if you know the answer to that question.
I mean, there's an early text called the Yi Jing that dates 1000 BC, and it's translated as the Book of
1000
Changes.
BC.
Yeah, I know. That was back in China when China was predominantly shamanistic. So they were, interested in the role of humans and in how to live in harmony with nature. And since then, there are thousands and thousands of styles of Qigong, and it's been influenced by the Taoists, the Buddhists, philosophers, healers. There's the Shaolin monks to a type of Qigong. So there are thousands of different styles.
And does it look different with the different styles, or
not really?
No.
A little. Some of the same movements will have different names.
Right. That's what's different about it. The names and maybe the intentions.
And I mean, some of the movements are different, but I think what they all agree on is the intention behind the movement. And is essentially opening, clearing, and circulating life force energy through the body. I was taught by an amazing teacher called Marissa Cranfill, and the style that I teach is actually called Yochi. So she spent a lot of her life studying Buddhism and Chinese philosophy and Indian scriptures, and she's a yoga teacher and Qigong, expert. And so she's kind of fused it's kind of like a modern fusion of traditional Qigong philosophy with Hindu and Taoist yoga. So a lot of the poses that I teach you would be familiar with them in yoga, but the intention behind the poses is different. Because we're not pushing the body and we're not overstretching to the body's limits. We're just holding those postures to sort of align with body awareness, and they relate to the particular meridians is the purpose of why we're holding those postures, why we're flowing through it. And her style is called Qigong flow. So it's a flowing practice from one movement to the other. I guess like similar to vinyasa in that way, but with a bit more tapping and a lot of weird sounds, and various breaths, some of which are definitely, you definitely find in yoga. And I mean, if you think about it, as much as that might feel a lot, to sort of fuse yoga and qigong together, but the Indians and Chinese have been trading traditions, spiritual practices for hundreds of years, and kind of comparing them, mixing them, and trying out different things of what work, and working quite harmoniously. So it's a particular style that I really enjoy practicing and teaching.
Mm. And is it similar to Tai Chi?
Oh, that famous old question.
I remember thinking that when I was first coming to you and being like, I don't know. Like, it's because I didn't know about Qigong and Tai Chi. Qigong is 2 words, Tai Chi is 2 words. They
Yeah.
kind of sound like, they don't sound similar, but I was getting them mixed up, and it's just because I didn't know the difference.
Yeah,
Not
and
the similarities.
yeah, exactly. And most people say that when I say I teach qigong, they're like, Tai Chi, and I'm like,
Not
kind
really.
of.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both from China.
Yeah.
They are similar in a sense of, again, that intention. And a lot of Tai Chi classes would use some Qigong movements to warm up and open up the body's vessels, those channels. But I guess the difference is that Tai Chi follows a very structured set of particular movements that is repeated in each class. I think it's like 44 movements, and then there's another set for advanced people that's like 88. I have made those numbers up, but it's something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they repeat that exact same thing every single time.
Every
A
time.
bit like an Ashtanga, I guess, like that kind of
Are
vibe.
there different levels with Tai Chi once you like?
I think so.
Like,
I don't know everything about it, but yes, there's definitely, like a beginner set,
Yeah.
and then, a higher set.
Once you've mastered that, you
Yeah.
can then go up.
And Tai Chi is very much a martial art, because you're actually directing the chi, the strength and power, to the limbs and the extremities. Qigong is also a martial art. There are 3 schools of Qigong. One is medical Qigong. So in traditional Chinese medicine, a doctor of a traditional Chinese medicine hospital would prescribe a Qigong movements for particular diseases and illnesses. And then there's the martial arts school, which most commonly we would know of the Shaolin monks, and they are using qigong to build up qi and send it to the limbs and the extremities, for extra strength and power to be used to fight and for self-defense. And then there is spiritual qigong, which is using qigong to connect, cultivate, and refine the energy reservoirs in the body, so that the whole energy body is balanced, and to open up that connection to your higher self and source, and the oneness of all. The Qigong flow that I teach marries all of those schools. We do a bit of everything, all of those different movements. It's because sometimes we're doing internal work we kind of follow a particular sequence that sort of brings in movements from all those different schools.
And is there like a sequence that you follow during the Qigong classes?
Yeah, so there's
And is it called is it a class or is it like a practice like yoga?
a bit both.
Yeah.
It is. It's like you're learning a practice.
Yeah.
That you can take away, but yeah, I guess it's both those things, but more of a practice. And I think the difference as well with qigong is that, okay, so the sequence itself is 6 stages. So first we attune to the energy, which is the earth element. Then we purge, which is metal element, which is like cleansing, clearing any toxins, any stagnant chi, getting all that moved. And
You do that by sort of like brushing and.
I think that's the thing about qigong, is that for each of these stages of the sequence, there are hundreds of different movements you can do. So it can be different every time. There's many options, unlike Tai Chi, where you're kind of set into this format. But a lot of breath work with purging, actually, and yes, a lot of tapping and stroking the meridians, flushing the meridians, self massage, a lot of tapping in the face and the body. So then we purge. Once we've purged all of that sort of either excess or gnarly toxins, then we tonify the chi, which is kind of refining your essence, your life force essence that's inside of you, and then we grow it. and which is wood element, and then we circulate it through the body. You want to wait until you've grown and cultivated some really good chi before you circulate that, and that's fire element. And then we finish by integrating it all into our systems and centering. Yeah.
Did you say metal element
Yeah.
and wood element?
Yeah.
You talked to me about the elements.
Yeah.
I thought they were only a small amount.
I know. I know. In traditional Chinese medicine, you use the 5 element cycle, which is earth, metal, water, wood, and fire.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we kind of work with the elements to do with everything to do with Qigong, because they are kind of like the best way of us connecting. I mean, the elements are in every landscape that we ever witness. And so they connect us with nature, and they are also represented in all of our physical, emotional, and mental body. So I guess, and they form this cycle, and if even one of the elements is out of balance, then everything's out of balance, because they all work together to create harmony in nature and in the body. So it's the kind of, that's how we work through any issues in Qigong, how we fix imbalances, how we diagnose kind of certain imbalances. And I guess if you think about nature, the fires nourish the earth. The metal gives the earth structure and order. And water, if it's too excess, it would corrode metal. And if metal's too excess, it would poison the water. And if the water's too excess, then the wood can't grow because it's flooded. And the same if it's deficient. And then if there's not enough wood to grow, then the fires are deficient, and then that can't nourish the earth. So they all work in a cycle in nature to support and bring harmony to nature and our environment. And then they are also related to these other aspects of ourself. So for instance, mentally, the earth element is our thoughts. And then the metal element is what organizes and structures our thoughts, into an idea. And then the water element is what brings creativity to that idea and exploration, expansion. And then the wood element is what grows that idea into something actually tangible. And then the fire element is what circulates that idea, turns it into action, puts it out into the world. So that's how we work with the elements mentally. And then physically, each of our organs resonates with a particular element, vibrates with the same frequency of that element, and also a particular emotion, an emotion that affects a particular organ and is stored in that organ. So, for instance, earth is the stomach and spleen, and they are affected and store worry and anxiety, which is why when you feel like you have any self-doubt or worry, you feel it like in the pit of your stomach. And then the lungs are metal element, and they store sadness and grief, which we can think about when our breathing changes, when we're feeling those sort of big grieving inhalations. And then water is the kidneys and gallbladder, and that stores fear and shock. And then the wood element is the liver and intestine, and that sort of stores and harbors anger and frustration. And then the fire element is the heart, and the heart is known as the emperor of all the emotions, so it's affected by all of the emotions and regulates the whole system, but is also very prone to overheating from those emotions. So we can kind of use those elements to create balance. If there's an imbalance in any one of those elements, be it from a particular emotional symptom or a physical symptom, mental symptom, then it starts to knock on to all of the other elements, and then the whole thing becomes off balance. So every Qigong practice that we do, we look at all of the elements as a whole and we structure them. But my classes, because the seasons also correspond with a particular element, and there's a particular pathogen of each season that affects the body and the energy body. So I find that when you're doing a group class, it's good to work alongside the seasons because you don't know everybody's personal imbalances. So we balance them alongside the seasons and what would be, there's a dominant element of the season, but also a dominant organ and particular emotion along with the pathogen. So we kind of use that to design the classes that I teach.
So we've just had summer solstice. What would be the element? I'm testing you, aren't I?
That's fire.
Fire.
Fire it's like the peak of fire. And the dominant organs of that time of year are the heart and the pericardium, the sac that's around that heart. So it's like the peak, nature, the earth, the sun is all at its peak, which is amazing. It's filled with energy and filled with life, but there's a lot of heat, and that heat is in the earth and it's also in the body, and that can then start to create disturbances in the chi flow if there's too much heat. So we want to work at this time of year to really open the heart and clear the heart. Whereas on other times of year, like in the winter, we would want to nourish and support the heart. It's a bit more tender and cold. So we want to make sure that that is all always working in balance.
Excellent. And you share your practice, you teach your classes. Do you do one-on-ones?
I do one-on-ones, and I do workshops as well. I think primarily for that, the element business, because in my one-on-ones, it allows us to actually analyze an individual's every person has a particularly dominant element that's represented by their personality and by what they look like. And those two elements can be different. So it's not like star signs where, I'm a Scorpio and that makes me a water element. It's very different in traditional Chinese medicine. What you look like is a particular element, but your personality actually can change elements throughout the course of your life. So it's quite a detailed document of exploration to work out what your dominant element currently is. And then once we know that, then we have lots of symptoms to establish whether you're balanced in your element or if you are excess or deficient in it. And then I can bespoke design a class for your particular energy body to restore it back to balance, or just one that focuses on your energy type. For instance, like a wood element type, they would be a very kind, compassionate person, incredibly driven, full of ideas, always pushing themselves to their limits, expanding, courageous. But if in excess, if they have an excess of wood element in them, then they start to become quite dominating, arrogant, their way or the highway, a bit pushy. And vice versa, if they are deficient in wood element, then they can become quite unmotivated and lethargic and lacking purpose and drive. And then there's a whole host of physical symptoms in the body as well that correlate to these elements too. So it's an interesting way of being able to recalibrate your energy system from a sort of different viewpoint.
Yeah. And how did you get into it?
I mean, I've always been interested in the idea of energy exercises. Weirdly, my whole life, I always was like, I know there's like I was always a bit lazy. So exercise, not massive one, but energy exercises, that sounded like something I could do
Great.
from the seated position, which
Yeah.
you can with a lot of Qigong if you're, not feeling like standing. And I was practicing yoga for a long time. And then when I was pregnant with my first son, who's now 7, I got to the stage with yoga where I couldn't do it. I actually got a really bad injury from pushing yoga all the way up to the end of pregnancy. And it was my best friend at the time, actually. She was like, you should do these little Qigong videos. And I didn't know what Qigong was either at that stage. She was like, they're just on YouTube, these very short videos. And honestly, I was just like, fell in love, because even just 10 minutes of Qigong, the difference that it made me feel, something as simple as when you have been sat at the computer all day or you're really busy and you get like brain fog. A simple practice we do in Qigong is called running the 10 dragons through the forest. And you just drag your fingertips from the front of your scalp down over your head to the back of your neck repeatedly. and you're just stimulating all of the yang meridians in the head, and actually enlivens the brain, clears brain fog, creates like mental stimulation, and instantly you feel more enlivened. And actually, the Chinese would say that the women live longer than men because they brush their hair.
Oh, really?
Because you're like stimulating those things, the meridians. So yeah, I find it really accessible because anyone can do it. And although, or my husband might have been like, "Is that one of those old people things?"
That you see in the park.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, no, the reason you see old people is just because they can still move because they've been practicing this for so
Yeah.
long.
And they're so much wiser.
Exactly. They know that how to move their bodies. Because even when you see, chi masters and stuff, like, they don't look particularly strong, but
Mm.
they are badass.
Mm.
And I think that was another, when I started researching it, I started coming across these chi masters. There's one in particular called John Chang. And if you can look him up on YouTube, it's like old 70s documentary of these guys that they heard about him and he had this ability to levitate and set fire to paper with his hands because of his chi cultivation. And they hunted him out and tried to do a documentary with him. And they did manage to get some of this stuff on film. It's really old quality when you see it on YouTube, and I think it's YouTube. You can find bits of it, but fascinating. And also, he, fell out with them over it because all of these chi masters, they're very humble humans that they kind of keep their, for want of a better word, superpowers, because in my mind they are literally like little superhumans,
Mm.
under wraps. Like there's a grandmaster, Zhang. He can manipulate like a compass. He can change the magnet, the what do you call it, the needle of a
Yeah.
compass, and make it spin out without even touching it. My teacher, Marissa Granville, even talks about having witnessed with her own eyes, certain chi masters that have the ability either to kill without even placing their hands on somebody, or obviously to enhance life. They have that ability. And they have done studies now. There's quite a few studies in Japan of people doing qigong where they were taking readings of their electromagnetic field around the brain, around the heart, and around the body, and on the hands, and it was 1,000 times more than what a normal human would be. So that you're cultivating and directing this chi. And I think that really interested me because obviously, what a party trick. Like, I want to be able to set fire to paper with my fingertips. I mean, come
I thought you were going to say,
on.
what a party trick. I'd love to just kill someone in front of everybody
Well, that's a bit
without touching them.
yeah, like Kill Bill, when she could do that punch where she was like that. I was
So
like, that
cool.
kind of reminds me a bit of like what chi masters have the capability. And
Yeah.
but obviously I imagine they keep it, they don't broadcast it because if the government or any
No.
medical institutions have got hold of them, I'm sure they would test them and within an inch of their life and try and harness that power, which then leaves it kind of out in the ether as a bit of a folklore story. But I think there is more and more evidence of it. Well, there is, because when you practice it yourself you begin to feel it and sense it. And although nobody got time to practice enough to be able to set fire to things with their fingers, we have lighters for that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's
It's
okay.
not too bad.
No.
We'll live. Is there anyone that can't do it?
No.
Like age-wise or,
There is certain contraindications for certain movements, in terms of there are certain movements that you wouldn't do at different times of your cycle, because what that means, what your life force is doing, with the blood that you're excreting. Also different types of times of pregnancy, and if you were on like chemotherapy, there will be certain movements. You can still do qigong, but there are thousands of movements of qigong. So you just have to tell your instructor, for want of a better word, what's going on with you, and they will just tell you what certain moves not to do, because you are controlling and directing qi to certain places. And so if you have certain ailments or you're growing a baby, you don't want to take the chi away from the baby, and equally you don't want to overload the baby with that energy.
And kids, can they do it? Do you do it
Absolutely.
with your boys?
Oh yeah, they love it. So I actually went into my kids' school, around as part of Chinese New Year, to teach them it, because it's really amazing for emotional regulation. Obviously with kids, I wouldn't, that young, my kids are 4 and 7. And my 7-year-old can handle a full flow, but they get bored easy. Whereas the good thing about Qigong is you can just take certain movements. And so for the kids I feel like in school these days, they're a bit disempowered. And with whatever goes on in their relationships or in their bodies, they have to run for help all the time. And there's an awful lot of send kids in my son's school as well. And I just feel like they probably feel like they don't have any power of their own emotions and their own regulation. So I think it's really lovely to be able to teach them very simple movements. A lot of the movements are associated with animals, that when they feel specific emotions like anger, sadness, fear, anxiety, I teach them certain movements that they can do with their body that brings them back into their body, also releases the emotional charge and dissipates that particular chi and gets it flowing and circulating. And within 30 seconds you can feel a whole lot better. So it's great for kids.
Amazing. And would you have any advice for anyone who wants to get into Qigong?
There is, just do it. Just do it.
Simple.
Come and do it.
Yeah,
There's loads of videos on YouTube. I have some free videos on there as well, just under Sarah Mooney Jones, like little 10-minute ones, just as tasters to see whether you like it. And to be honest, even 10 minutes of a morning can completely change your energy. And there's qigong for morning, afternoon, night. There's variations for the elements, for the seasons. There's actually a meridian clock that we follow as well. So there are specific times of day that you should and shouldn't do certain movements. Like you want to flush out the bladder meridian first thing in the morning, but not at certain other times of the day. So I would say just go on there. Everybody, is attracted to different types of teachers. So have a little play. I have an online portal on my website where you have access to sort of on-demand videos. And in a few months, I will have set up so that you can actually discover your own dominant element via my website. And then it will guide you to a specific class that is right for you, be it if you're balanced in that element or excess or deficient. Creating a bit more of a bespoke class that you can do. But yeah, just do it and then tell me how you feel, even if you feel weird doing it. But afterwards, if you don't feel good, I'll eat my hat.
Yeah, there's so many practices out there today where it's obviously like when I've done Qigong with you before, I prefer being in a group setting, but it's so easy just to like type it into Google and just find a video and just flow. And I think that's part of the fun of it, just finding your own teacher and finding your own vibe and what you like and what you don't like, and whether you feel comfortable doing it in your bedroom in the morning or whether you're more of like an evening class or one-to-one sort of person. That can be, a fun little exploration to do.
Yeah, it's kind of like what the purpose of it is. With the little 10-minute morning ones, I find the more you practice that, then all of a sudden you don't need the video, you know the moves. And that's actually what you want to get to. You're just learning an external move, but really you're guiding the chi with your mind anyway. So the movements really aren't that important. Some of them are quite dance-like and beautiful, and others, the purging ones, obviously they really help because they are moving and clearing the chi. You can do a lot of that with your breath, with your intention. It's just about connecting you back with your mind, body, and spirit in a full alignment. What did you enjoy in qigong classes? I mean, if you say no,
No, I
we're gonna
no, I
this will be
love
our last
it.
podcast.
No, I loved it. I love the classes that I do with you, especially when we get to do them outside. It feels very natural to do them outside. It feels like, oh, this is where they're meant to be done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like it because I'm normally, if I go to yoga or if I go to a gym class, I'm going 100%. So it's not really super in my nature to do something 70%.
Okay.
And for it to actually be the recommended percentage of how far you push yourself. But it's really nice. I find it really meditative, and being given that excuse to go slow and just move rather than 100 miles an hour. Yeah, it's very relaxing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Right answer, Jess.
Great. And pay me after.
We can still be friends.
Okay, well, thank you so much for listening to our Qigong podcast, and we will be back here again another day.
Bye, everyone.